Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Nanaimo, Alberni.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. It's a great pleasure to stand and enter this debate today on Bill C-38. It's a Budget Implementation Act. And I appreciate there's a lot of engagement around the House today from members opposite and members on this side of the House. As all members will recall, Budget 2012 was tabled on March 29th. It launches the next phase of our Economic Action Plan. Response to the budget was applauded by economists from coast to coast. Now, the member just spoke, the member from Markham, Unionville. I know, being a former economist, I was waiting for him to echo some of the economists around Canada, of the major banks who applauded the budget. Well, there's a reason that the economists from around the country have applauded our measures in the budget, Mr. Speaker. All over the world, nations are reeling under the chaos of worldwide economic meltdown that struck in 2008 and worsened through 2009. Even this week, we've seen major changes in two countries in Europe, with France and Greece, reorganizing new governments, new leaders. Political fallout takes a toll on social stability. By contrast, Canada has been shaken but remains stable. The World Economic Forum, the International Monetary Fund, Moody's, the Forbes magazine have all applauded Canada's economic performance and predict we are positioned to lead world economies in the next years. And the reason that economists have embraced our budget is because they recognize the choices made in our Economic Action Plan that keep Canada moving in the right direction. Phase 2 of the Economic Action Plan is a plan for jobs, for growth, and for long-term prosperity. Budget 2012 takes important steps to address the challenges and to take advantages of the opportunities of global economy while ensuring sustainable social programs and sound public finances for future generations. The budget contains reforms that are substantial, they're responsible, and they're necessary. Reforms that will ensure across government we're focused on sustaining Canada's long-term economic growth. Just as we did in the first phase of Canada's Economic Action Plan, the focus of this budget is on boosting economic growth and job creation. It's on stimulating innovation, investment, education, and skills. Let me just list in broad strokes the major initiatives in Bill C-38 that are about making major investments of over $1 billion to support science and technology, providing $500 million to spur growth of innovative startup companies, ensuring responsible resource development by moving to a one project, one review with a clearly defined time period for major economic projects while continuing to protect the environment. Opening new markets and expanding international trade, bringing Canadian goods to the world. Extending the hiring credit for small business for one more year to make it more attractive for small businesses to grow and to hire more workers. Providing $150 million over 2 years for the new Community Infrastructure Improvement Fund. Providing $5.2 million over 11 years to renew the Canadian Coast Guard. That's something that's going to impact communities on both coasts of this great country and in the north. It's essential, and it'll serve our communities for many years to come. We're focusing on employment insurance and promoting job creation by removing disincentives to work and supporting unemployed Canadians by connecting them more quickly to jobs. How about providing $275 million over 3 years to support First Nations education and to build and renovate schools on reserve? I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that has all these measures over the last couple of years, which this initiative builds on, have made a huge difference in First Nations and coastal BC. And I mentioned earlier in a question comment about a new school in Ahousaht, some 800 people in that community off access only by boat. But the new school is a huge asset in that community, and it's going to impact education, which is a priority for the national chief, the chief of the Assembly of First Nations, who is actually from the coast of British Columbia. In addition to that, on reserve, there's some $330 million going into upgrading water systems on reserve. Extremely important for our remote rural communities. Building a fast and flexible economic immigration system to attract immigrants with the skills and experience our economy needs, and our immigration minister has been doing a major overhaul to make sure that we attract the kind of immigrants that are going to contribute to the long-term prosperity in Canada, not only of their own families, but of our Canadian economy at the same time. If we pause and take a look back, it's helpful, I think, to remember that after forming government in 2006, this government paid down nearly $40 billion on our national debt. And that positioned us well in as much as in the ensuing recession period, we had to run a deficit to provide the much-needed economic stimulus and keep people working. The Economic Action Plan launched a massive infrastructure investment plan. Yes, we hired more federal employees to make sure the money was well administered and went to projects that would position Canada well, creating economic opportunities that are having a positive impact right now across Canada from coast to coast. We also launched a work-share program. We expanded EI benefits. We launched retraining programs for displaced workers and invested big time in education and science infrastructure. That would be through the Knowledge Infrastructure Program. And all of this was to keep people working and to prepare for tomorrow's jobs. The net result of prudent planning, Mr. Speaker, is that Canada has emerged as one of the top performing industrialized countries. Since the peak of the recession, July 2009, our economy has seen almost 700,000 new jobs, and most of those full-time. Canada is the only country, G7 country, that has come out of the recession with more jobs than we had when we went into it. Keeping taxes low for Canadians has been a key policy for this government. Since 2006, we've reduced the tax burden of Canadians through some 140 measures. As a result, the average Canadian family of four saves about $3,100 each and every year as a result of these measures. The budget contains measures to create employment. The $1,000 hiring credit for small business. Incentives for apprentices up to $4,000 for tools, for tuition, and travel expenses. That would be for the Red Seal trades. Improvements to EI and Temporary Foreign Workers Program will help connect Canadians, including those seniors who are willing and able to, and who wish to continue working, connecting them with available jobs. Now, I made reference earlier to mega investments in science, technology, and innovation through our granting agencies like Genome Canada and the Canadian Foundation for Innovation. In addition to that, there's $105 million to fund innovation in the forest sector. Extremely important to generate value-added production, something that we're very interested in coastal British Columbia. Investments in the Coast Guard fleet and renewal in helicopters, valued at $5.2 billion, will be of benefit to coastal communities. There are huge investments to help improve the living conditions and opportunities for vulnerable people in remote settings. And I mentioned the water systems on reserve, but there's big investments in education on reserve. That $275 million across the nation is going to make a difference. In order to ensure the sustainability of old age security, the age of eligibility will be gradually raised to 67, starting in 2023 and fully implemented in 2029. In 2 decades, the number of retirees will double. Costs will triple, and meanwhile, by 2030, unchanged, the number of taxpayers for every senior will be down to 2, from currently about 4. Well, in 2010, there were 4, and when the program was initiated, there were 7. In order to ensure the sustainability, we have ensured that the changes are made with substantial notice and with an adjustment period. They will not affect current retirees or those close to retirement, and will give others plenty of time to adjust to the changes and plan for their retirement. Overall, in British Columbia, we'll benefit from $5.6 billion in health, education, and social transfers, fulfilling our promise to balance the federal budget without cutting transfers to the provinces. Mr. Speaker, this budget is focused on jobs and long-term prosperity. Like the previous phase of the Economic Action Plan, it addresses the changing worldwide economic situation and is designed to keep Canada competitive for the benefit of all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, do I still have a minute? I have a little bit of time here. So let me just quote from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, President Barry Vrabanovic, who said Canada's municipal leaders welcome today's commitment by the federal government to continue working with cities and communities to rebuild the local roads, water systems, community centers, and public transit that our families, business, and economy depend on. He goes on to say that today's budget continues building a new infrastructure partnership that creates jobs and strengthens Canada's future economic foundation. And of course, I know that our municipalities in coastal BC are very appreciative of that gas tax fund, the $2 billion fund that we increased even during tough economic times. Our great finance minister extended that gas tax fund to $2 billion to make sure municipalities have the funds to move ahead with important projects. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.